All right, you guys, this is Unit 3 for you. Unit 3 resources, since you'll be starting that next week. Here's the new math room fresh off the press. And then you have Unit 3 notes right here. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the notes part of it. So this is what it looks like. It starts off just giving you again, here's the new math room if you want to use it. This is what it looks like with the math room. You have the addition and subtraction, all the stuff that I have shared with you before, but I thought it would be good for kids to still make use of this. So if they need to practice with that, there's that. And then Khan Academy, this is a new link this time to using everything that Khan Academy has to offer with third grade addition and subtraction and estimation and rounding. So if a kid ends up going here, then they're going to peruse what stuff they need practice with. Or maybe they need to watch a video on something. The videos, I don't really advise on Khan Academy, them watching them by themselves since they're pretty dry. But up to you. The practice is over here. So they can practice with rounding. They can go through and maybe have a quiz on it. They do 2 and 3 digit number addition. You just keep scrolling through. And this is everything that Khan Academy has for third grade with addition, subtraction, and rounding. Okay. Rounding here is going to be, this is a little anchor chart. And if they click here, they're going to end up with some rounding games. Okay. So all these they can make use of. Going back to the home page, you have Number Corner, deals with those arrays in November. So I have this being the multiplication stuff. So if they click there, they'll get to all the multiplication practice they could still be doing. Going back to the home page again. This is just a window to just put ourselves at peace there with the water. Doesn't link to anywhere. Either does the dog. And then if a kid wants to make use of the Numberline app to do some addition, they could just have it right there. I know it's on their class link, but it's nice when it's also on here. Same as the thing with number pieces. And then you have some extension activities that a kid could look at if they bring their Chromebook home with their parents and see some things they could be looking at home maybe. Or maybe you give them one of those activities in the classroom. And then just a fishbowl that doesn't link anywhere. Just thought it looked cool. Okay, so that's all that's in the Unit 3 math room. If I go back to the notes, starting the week before Thanksgiving, I'm thinking you guys are starting Unit 3. So here's the Smartboard file for rounding, because that's what it will be for the week before Thanksgiving, is all rounding stuff with a sprinkling of place values. So you can get that Smartboard file here. The first lesson is just going to be pre-assessing rounding. So if you want to get a checkup on what they know before you even start, because you might have already been doing it in Number Corner, this was what we have used last year. Has 2 pages front and back with the number lines. So rounding to the nearest 10 and then rounding to the nearest 100. So that would be day 1. I also put on there, you could also that day do some whiteboard place value practice up to the thousands. And there is a page for practice if you'd like to use it right there. On the Smartboard file for rounding, it looks like this. There's the place value rock song that they may have listened to in grade 2. And then here's what we're looking at: ones, tens, hundreds, and now we have thousands. So now you're pulling over a number and making it, and they're writing down that number on their whiteboard. And then you get into the first lesson. There's the checkup. Okay, so that's the first lesson. Then you go lesson number 2, start off with making a number if you want to work on the place value, and then get into rounding. So day 1, you're rounding to the nearest 10. So you're taking this number and practicing on a number line, knowing what are these? Well, those are the halfway marks, and those matter when we're rounding. And so we're going to round 43 to the nearest 10, plot it on the number line. Notice it's closest to 40. That's the nearest 10. And then we would practice with various numbers together using that number line. Then the same day, we want to get a little spicier. So now what if we have a number in the hundreds, but we're still rounding to the nearest 10? We can still make use of this number line, but then we would just put that 3 in front of it to make it 300s. And now 347 is going to be where. So it gets a little tougher. That's why it's a little spicier on that. And then practicing with some of those. So that's in the first lesson there. Then you have the game basketball where they're playing against a partner and they're spinning and they're getting a 5 and a 2. So they could either do 52 or 25. And they're deciding, okay, I'm going to go with 25 because that rounds to 30. So then they would write in and they would go, okay, I'm going to write in 25 right here. And I get to cross off this basketball. And now the next person goes, right? First person to cross off all their baskets wins, or in the certain amount of time that they get. Okay? So that is up to lesson number 2. Now that might take you longer than 2 days, but I just want to put it all out there. Okay? If you don't like the round ball game, then there are some practice sheets for rounding. You can go to here or to here. All right, then we go to lesson 3. Now we're going to round to hundreds to the nearest 100. We're going to use the same idea with the number line. So if we go back to the smartboard file right here, if I keep going, and I always break up the lessons with a blank page. So we have place value practice, then we go into rounding to the nearest 100. Here's our number, but now our number line are hundreds because we're rounding to the nearest 100. So now we have to know those halfway points and plot this where it goes and be able to get it to the right 100. Then you can just give them multiple practice problems to try, and then you have the same game, but this time we're dealing some cards. You deal 3 cards, and then you're going to try to round that to the nearest 100. So same idea. All right, so that's all that consists in the rounding lessons. And that would all take place before we go on break and Thanksgiving, knowing that in December, Number Corner, you're going to round again. So they'll get more practice with it. This just gives them a whole week of just straight up rounding. I did put in here, if you're interested, there's a read aloud with either Circumference Battle or Coyotes. And I made this smartboard file last year with both books, if you're interested in doing a read aloud that has to do with rounding. If you want, you could give out that checkup again to see how they're doing with it at the end of the week. Or just wait till the end of December because they'll get more practice with rounding again come December. Up to you. There are some rounding extensions if you want to go there if that wasn't enough stuff. All right. Then moving onward, when we come back from break, it would be getting into addition multi-digit strategies, and then subtraction multi-digit strategies, and then wrapping it back up with more subtraction before Christmas, finishing out Unit 3. So if you're wondering what happened with rounding, rounding is going to be within this, okay? So in the week we get back, it's going to be all addition strategies. If you want to give a pretest, there it is. We used this last year. And then you would start with word problems every day. So this is the smartboard file for this one. Looks like this. If you have time, you can have kids on a whiteboard and saying, what do you think goes here? Write it on your whiteboard, blah, 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 blah. Go through a place value split and then do a addition problem of the day. We go through a problem and we have a fun video to watch when we're done with it. But first we have to do the work. We're going to estimate the answer first by rounding. Yay. And then we're going to solve it 4 different ways. Okay, to get a lot of strategies of how to add in addition, how to add. And then the next day looks very similar. Start with something on the whiteboard, or if you don't have time, don't do that and go straight to the word problem. And then we do the same thing. Estimate by rounding, practice 4 strategies, and then you decide how you want to practice. Do you want to use this game to practice? If you do, we have a new sheet, fill-in sheet to make use of instead of the one Bridges had. So our sheet looks like, if I go back to the notes, if you're going to use this game, here is the sheet that you would print off and have kids fill out when they play the game. And it's not really a game. You're pretty much just practicing addition and seeing how close you are to your rounded answer. So I'm going to spin 2 spinners or roll 2 dice and get a 2-digit number and a 2-digit number. I'm going to round and get my answer there. And then I'm going to solve it and get the actual answer and see what my difference was. And that's how many points I got in that round. So if my rounding answer was the same as my actual answer, I got 0 points, which is really good. You want to get the lowest possible points. Okay, so that is a decision for you to make on how you want to practice with adding, whether you just give them a problem. And then the next day is the same exact thing. You have another word problem that you're working through, and then the next day, another word problem that you're working through, okay? The only thing that changes is that you get into the hundreds. So instead of working with tens, now our word problem is using 3-digit numbers. But we're going to do the same thing. We're going to estimate to round, and then we're going to solve it 4 different ways, okay? To really get a lot of practice. So that's in 1 week there. Addition 4 different ways, all right? Making use of the round and add tens and hundreds game if you want to. Otherwise, come up with your own practice sheets. I didn't really like most of them in the binders. Then you go into subtraction strategies after that. And week number 1 would be working on removing versus finding the difference. We used this last year. I think it's good again to get kids used to this idea. If you're going to work through this Smartboard file, then you'll want to make use of the fill-in notes right here, print these all out, and you'd be doing 1 of these each day, okay? And if you want to give them more practice problems, you could just make up more of them afterwards that are similar to this, okay? So back to the notes here. The Smartboard file for the subtraction one looks like this. So you have a word problem. They're trying to decide what the question would be. And then we're going to solve it by using the removal. And then we're going to solve it by finding the difference. And then we're going to look at another problem and say, how would you do this one? Would you use removal or would you use the difference? And we'll share our ideas. And then we go to day 2. We have another word problem and we're going to solve it with removal, the difference, and then we're going to show them a newer one that they haven't seen before, the constant difference, where we can make our life easier by moving it around on the number line. So all of these are fill-in notes together and working with removing versus the difference. And then the week before Christmas, we're going to do more subtraction strategies. And it's with place value blocks and bringing in the idea of the algorithm. So now we used this last year also, where we start with the number on their tables. They make it. They make 971 at their table. And then they're going to remove 9. They figure that out together. They remove 50, figure that out, remove 600. And hey, guess what? You just did this problem. Now let's watch this Khan Academy video together and work this through on our whiteboards on how they figured it out with the algorithm. So every day kind of looks like this, where we're starting with place value blocks and we're looking through how the algorithm works in subtraction before we head out to Christmas break. And you could give out the post checkup before leaving to break, okay? All right, that's all of Unit 3 in a quick 15-minute video here. As you notice, there aren't really any worksheets here, practice pages, so it'd be you just giving them a few problems each day at the end if you need to. Yeah, otherwise you can look through your Bridges binder to see if you like any of those teacher pages, okay? I did say in these 2 weeks before Christmas, since it's all subtraction, to incorporate some addition problems, like as they come in for math time, let's do at least one addition problem and share how we solved it. Now let's go to subtraction. Okay? All right, guys, high five. Good job. Math on.